I'm not doing anything, don't worry.
I started recording then because I thought I was going to miss some gold. I thought there's going to be something that he's going to come in with a load of orange makeup on, waving an American flag, shouting voter fraud.
No, a little bit like Donald Trump. I was securing the perimeter so nobody else could get into my safe space, and then I can't be evacuated either.
Excellent segues. Obviously, just a professional.
Yeah. I mean, people. Let's just cut to this shit, Jay. Let's just get to it, right? I think
oil up and get on with it.
Yeah, let's just dive straight in, because I think after Joe Biden got into the White House, it's only right that tonight on Scotty and Motta we relive the highlights and the things that Donald Trump has given the world in his 4 years. Thanks for that, Donald.
Yeah.
How have you been, Jay?
I've been all right, mate. When was it I last saw you? We did this live, didn't we?
On last Tuesday night?
Last Tuesday. Now, I know we say this quite a lot on this podcast, but that week, it's not even a week, 6 days, because we're recording this on a Monday night, feels like about 6 months ago, because so much happened during that evening, even. And what I'm going to do as well is, I've been thinking about this, because we did it live, it was a 6-hour marathon podcast. Scotty lasted a good hour and a half, 2 hours.
3 hours?
3 hours, mate. Listen, do you know what? You did well, because we were messaging each other and I thought, I don't know, I was thinking, is he going to be all right? Because it's late, and you're like, we're still doing this, I'm up for it. But you soldiered on, and I had a bit of a breather. Obviously, I came out for an hour, and then when I got back, you were like, I just need one of my kids just woke up, and then I didn't see you again. And then I had missed calls off you in the morning.
I thought, shit.
I fell asleep. I was like, don't worry about it, dude. But I want to say, I know we've done all this, but quickly, thanks to John Shane, thanks to James Young, thanks to Joe Smith, thanks to Trevor, Dwyer Lynch, thanks to Cam Waters, everyone who commented, everyone who got involved. We had a steady 70, 80 people watching continuously, which was great. A peak to 110 people watching, which for us is amazing. And everyone was getting well involved in the comments, and the chat was great. I'm going to, because it was so long and most people were dipping in and out and whatnot from what I gathered from the comments and the chat, I'm going to sort of, and it went through the whole gamut, didn't it? Because at one point, me and you were sort of ready to, turn it off.
We feared the worst.
We did. What made me laugh is I saw a couple of people in the comments were like, you two are so anti-Trump and pro-Biden. And I was like, well, yeah. It's like, have you not watched this before? But it was like 6 hours, and it went through the whole thing where it looked like Trump at one point was nailed on. We all thought that his odds. I kept going on about odds because that was a good way of me just to sum it up without going into each individual state. We're like 5-1 on, so that's done. It's over. And then I think by the time we left in the morning, about 6, it was just beginning to turn towards. Yeah, me and John Shin, I think, were the last men standing. Yeah. It was just beginning to turn towards Biden, but it was beginning to look like actually it's more likely Biden. And I think by the time I woke up, because I went to bed at 7. I woke up at 10. It was pretty much like heavily favoured towards Biden. But what I'll try and do is clip them, take them 6 hours up into like a video, and we'll put it on the channel so we can see, like, I'll put some timestamps. So we say, like, if I make it into like a 20-minute video with each bit, so you go from like midnight to 6, you can see how we went through the whole range of emotions, because it was hard work, mate. At one point, we were just doing an autopsy, weren't we, on America?
Well, I think that's when I went to bed trying to sing my daughter back to sleep at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was trying to reassure her that the world will be all right.
So, seriously, mate, did you go to bed thinking, or at that time, did you think like Trump's won?
Yeah, I was like, I thought like that's that. I thought I was sort of you were more clued up in terms of what states were the swing states and stuff like that. But I just kept seeing when you see like the color by numbers map on the TV, and it's looking more red than blue. I thought I was going to. I thought when I was passing out, I thought like I'm going to wake up and it's a Donald Trump world. But I mean, in some ways, it was it? I mean, he did he even believe himself? Is this the first time in an election where somebody who didn't turn out to be the president has declared themselves a president?
Yeah, I've never seen that before, and it was like he proper. I mean, it was tactical. He jumped the gun tactically, I think, to control the narrative of like, you know, when he tweeted, "I've won Pennsylvania," but Biden sort of outdid him, because when Biden did an announcement rather than just tweeting, you know, it was very sort of statesman-like and we'll be patient, but we're confident. And at that time, everyone was pretty confident. It's weird because I'd actually messaged my mate who came on the chat and was absolutely bonkers because he's a bit of a conspiracy theorist and a bit of a pro-Trump guy, but he's all right. And I'd messaged him and I'd said to him the night before the election, I said I couldn't see Biden holding the blue belt and maybe picking up Georgia, but not Florida and Texas. But I'd forgotten about that then, because you start fearing the worst, don't you, when Florida went and Texas, and then I think Trump had taken like a couple of others that were in the maybe column, but more red states. And you think, and then Wisconsin was very close, I think. But then when Wisconsin even went to Biden, Michigan went to Biden. Michigan was the big one for me, I think. I think that was after Wisconsin where you thought, hang on a minute. And then Pennsylvania, but was turning. But the problem was, and everyone sort of said this, you had this red mirage where everyone who voted in person was more or less Republican, because Trump told him not to vote by mail. He literally told people voting for him, don't vote by mail, vote in person. So all the first votes that were counted were more or less, you know, heavily favoured for him.
Yeah.
And then all the mail-in ballots came in, which were almost like, even in some red counties, were like 8 out of 10 for Biden. So then you saw the blue wave come in, and that tipped it. I mean, it was mad. I've never seen anything like that before. I mean, people talk about 2000 as being the closest, which is the closest election we've ever had. But I think I don't really remember 2000 very well. I wasn't really as switched on as I am now in terms of being that engaged with American politics. But for us, this was just crazy because, you know, if you were playing the betting markets, you just cleaned up because, you know, I don't know if they give you cash out, but if they gave you cash out on Trump and you cashed out at one point, because he was like 5-1 and then he went to 5-1 on and then back again. So there was serious cash. People were putting like massive bets on. And then, you know, he what was crazy as well, he took to Twitter, started making all these statements and announcements on Twitter, and then Twitter censored him. We're like, you're talking rubbish.
I mean, I thought that was quite fitting though, Jay. Don't you think for a president that for the 4 years while he was in charge, he was screaming fake news at everyone, and then the last sort of thing that anyone remember him will be fake news that he's been putting out himself. It just seemed quite a fitting narrative.
There were so many fitting narratives. I think you tweeted about it. John Lewis was from Georgia, and it looked like Georgia was the only red state that went blue. We all know the civil rights activist John Lewis, who Trump was obviously, you know, didn't go to his funeral, downplayed him. John Lewis didn't go, I think, to his inauguration or one of they hated each other really. But John Lewis is obviously an inspirational figure. So for that to happen, there's also, it looks like, and it depends because, you know, we're still not clear on how it's going to pan out, but it could almost be identical to what happened with Clinton and Trump in terms of votes, electoral college votes, which is again a bit ironic. And then the sort of the icing on the cake, as you said, is like the fake news stuff, where, talking of fake news, you know, he's got his mob holding press conferences next to a dildo shop and a fucking gardeners.
I know. I've the big winners out of the presidential campaign wasn't Biden and Kamala Harris. It was Four Seasons Landscaping that seems to have had the best PR that they could ever imagine. Can you imagine how many lawnmowers they've got that they've shifted this week?
Imagine, right? Imagine the feeling, right? Trump's probably incandescent with rage anyway. He's lost the election. He's trying to do this legal battle that's going against him. He's fuming, right? And you say, right, we're having a press conference at the Four Seasons. And he tweets it out. He tweets, press conference, Four Seasons Hotel. we're gonna, you know what I mean, we're gonna make a big announcement. Imagine being the guy that has to tell him to delete that tweet because you're not having a press conference at the Four Seasons Hotel. You're having it at Four Seasons Landscaping instead because someone's booked the wrong venue. Mate, he must have been fuming. And then you see Rudy Giuliani in a car park giving a speech about the state of the nation. What? He stood in a car park. If me or you decided to run for like councillor in Eccles or in SK or whatever, we wouldn't hold a press conference in a car park. Even we find somewhere a bit more grandiose than a fucking car park in front of a dildo shop. And this guy's talking about the presidency of the United States of America.
Oh, man.
That was so
I mean, the thick of it wouldn't have even come up with that, or Veep, or whatever. It just was that, innit? Can you just imagine like Malcolm Tucker saying, "You've got what? What?"
I need to read you, right? You like The Wire, don't you, mate?
A little bit.
A little bit, right? If I can find it.
A little bit. That the book's right next to my bed. Yeah.
I found the David Simon. I think he's one of the guys in. Is it from the Wire?
He's the main writer for it. He's brilliant on Twitter though. But AO Despair.
Yeah. I need to find the. There was a tweet that he put out. This is it. I love this. This is after it's a picture of them in this car park waiting for this announcement. And the tweet of the picture that he's quoted, it just says, "Did this man's entire presidency just end in a landscaping company's parking lot?" And he's quoted this and he's put, "So, from a film production standpoint, if the art department comes to me and said, here's the location and set dressing for the big scene in which a major party American presidential campaign makes the claim of widespread election fraud, all involved are so unbelievably fired." If that was like fiction, this is where we're going to set it.
Yeah.
You're all facts. That's ridiculous. You're fired. Well, that's what happened. That's where we're at. And just at the time of recording, Kayleigh McEnany, the press secretary, and I think Rona McDaniel, is it? Head of the RNC, Republican National Committee. They've just been holding a press conference, right? Kayleigh McEnany, who's the press secretary, just been holding a press conference about election fraud. And this is how bad it is. Fox News stopped the feed. They stopped broadcasting and said, "We're not going to broadcast this anymore because she's chatting shit," basically.
Fucking hell.
She's lying. And we're not going to give a platform to these lies. Now, that's Fox, which is about as right-wing as bloody David Beckham was at United. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to get more sort of pro-Trump than that. I know they've had issues over the election because he's not happy with the fact that they've declared Biden the winner because he did win. But they're like, we can't go down this hole. Yeah. And they cut her off, man. They were just like, they went back to the anchor and said, "No, we're not having any more of that." So
yeah. Murdoch seems to have burnt the bridges, hasn't he? He's pulled up the drawbridge to Mordor now, and fucking Gollum's not allowed in. And I mean, and that's a sign in itself, isn't it? I mean, we spoke about this before about the kingmaker, Rupert Murdoch, in terms of the power that he has regarding elections and stuff. So, you know, just like whatever small chance Trump may have had, which was, I doubt what the odds, you've more chance of fucking Burnley winning the Premier League, I guess, than fucking Donald Trump with overturning.
Yeah, I mean, from what I watched a little bit of the McEnany press conference with McDaniel, or is it McDaniel? I forget. Let me just make sure. Yeah, Rona McDaniel. And someone sort of fired a question at him and said, "This isn't evidence. These are just stories you've got." Oh, and there's this person that told us that they were in the counting room, and like that's anecdotal evidence is no evidence. Do you know what I mean? That's like me coming to you and saying, "Oh, Scotty, I saw, a load of people who told me they're cured of COVID." Oh, well, that case then, everyone's cured of COVID. It doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? You can't have anecdotal evidence to change an election. And they haven't got any real evidence. And someone challenged them, and then she's like, "I can't believe the media aren't more interested in this election fraud because it doesn't exist. Like, there isn't any." Do you know what I mean? Like, this has been probably the most secure election ever because of the threats of legal ramifications, because everyone was like, mailing ballots have got to be this, have got to be that. You know, people took painstaking time to make sure that the ballots were right, to make sure the mail-in ballots were done correctly. Lots of people queued up, not just Republicans, but both sides queued up, waiting for hours. You should never have to queue up for 6 hours to vote, by the way, especially in some of these inner cities and urban areas. People, you know, we saw people tweeting and posting pictures like being queuing for 6 hours, but finally got to vote, and they don't get a day off. It's not like here where you got a legal right to tell your boss, I'm going to vote, and they have to let you. In America, you know,
is that right?
Yeah, in America you can get, you know, I think I don't know if it's a law, but you get like they'll give you time to go and do it, but you don't get a day off, and if you're not getting paid, some people, you know, you don't get paid for that. So if you've got to go and take time off, and your boss is saying like, you know, we ain't gonna give you any dough, you got to go back to work. You might just not vote.
I don't think enough people know about that, because I probably would have voted more if I'd known I could get a day off work.
I'm sure in Britain. Yeah.
I tell you what,
that's vote in the European municipal elections.
That needs to be something Starmer runs on. Just like, all right, get out and vote. You'll get a day off.
Well, yeah, might end up voting for him then. But like, they made it really hard for a lot of people to vote, especially Democratic leaning people. But the mail-in ballots cut through a lot of that, because a lot of people just did mail-in ballots. I mean, that's why you saw this blue wave, and that's why Donald Trump's trying to pick holes in it. He's got his minions trying to pick holes in it, but there's no real evidence there. There's no evidence whatsoever there, and he might get a couple of recounts if Georgia's close and Wisconsin might be within the recount range. But other than that, there's not much you can do. You know, you can't just overturn elections because you don't like the outcome. If you could, then, you know, President Bush would have done it, or Obama would have done it for Clinton.
Yeah.
But you can't.
And then this evening, Jay, when we come on, I've just seen a news alert as well. The people that are actually the chief lawyers on behalf of Trump, I think 2 of them have just come down with coronavirus, so they'll be out of the game for 2 weeks.
Couldn't make it up, could you? And you know what the sad thing is, right? Is like, Biden's putting together his team, his transition team. He's already got his transition team, I think. He's also putting together like his coronavirus team. You know, his team that are going to look into COVID, and he's got like this team of doctors and whatnot. He's already started taking action. And in the meantime, Trump just seems like he's been golfing for 2 days. And then today he's finally come out of his stupor, and his first act is what? He's fired his Secretary of Defense. Like, it's just, you know, the contrast between the two of them is just night and day. And you saw it with Biden's speech. Biden didn't mention Trump. He wasn't bitter towards anyone. He spoke about his acceptance speech. I'm talking about, you know, bringing the country together, representing anyone, no matter whether you voted for him or not. I mean, it was really powerful and sort of just like a welcome antidote to the just poison that we've had for so long. The 4 years of just horrible, mean, nasty, lying drivel that we've been, exposed to, that we almost become immune to, because it's just like, oh, do you see what Trump did? And at first you're like, no ways he said that, no ways he done that. And then, before you know it, he's telling you to inject bleach and no one even bats an eyelid. Yeah,
I mean, it's just the fatigue of it, isn't it, I suppose? I mean, if anyone's watched the Trump show, and it sort of shows the stuff he was doing regarding the Muslim ban, the walls and stuff like that. And that's how he started. And then, like I said, all the way through the campaign. And I think the reason probably from Trump's side and his party side as to why they're getting pissed off regarding Fox News not publishing this story is because for the last 4 years, Fox News were giving him the run of the show. Do you know what I mean? And they were quite happy to go along with these sort of narratives that, yes, we do need to ban Muslims. Mexicans are murderous rapists. Do you know what I mean? So all of a sudden, if he's had that free run for 4 years, I can understand as wrong, as incorrect as it'd be for Fox News to run it, why Trump would sort of be irked after for so long him being able to do it. But you touched on a good point there where Biden said that he was going to be a United States of America. He was going to be a president for everyone, Republicans and Democrats. He wasn't just going to side with one. Now, I know everyone's really positive on the post-Biden, but part of it really fucking depresses me.
Why?
Not Biden's, not Biden winning, but just when you see how fractured and split society actually is. Because obviously, what was it, 70 million Americans did vote for Donald Trump and everything that he was sort of running for. There is a large part of the biggest, the city, the country, the biggest control in the world that sort of sided with them. And again, we bring it back to back to home and how fractured this place is. I mean, just take it back to the coronavirus. You look at Manchester during the weekend, you had a fucking tinfoil hats in Piccadilly Gardens protesting against lockdown and stuff. And it just depresses me. I know Biden was given the sound bites regarding creating a United States of America, but I mean, on more of a sort of global level, is it fixable?
Yeah, of course, man. You know, I don't want to be all sort of soppy and naive, but sometimes it's darkest before the dawn. You know, and we've been here before. We have. You know, I'm old enough to remember poll tax riots, Thatcherism. We thought, you know, it was Thatcher and Reagan in charge, and it was like a right-wing sort of agenda on both sides of the pond. Obviously, I was only a kid, I didn't fully understand it, but when you look back at that, was, you know, it was a lot of people that probably felt like they didn't have a voice, especially from our neck of the woods. Manchester was very sort of forgotten about, wasn't it? You've seen the Class of 92 film. And it touches on it there, you know, the sort of late 80s, early 90s in Manchester. Most of you, you know, you skinned, you didn't have a job, and you were just angry. And I think, you know, there are dark times and there has been dark times, but I just don't know, maybe I'm being a little bit naive, but maybe this is the first step towards a bit of decency, a bit of coming together, because, you know, Biden gets a lot of stick, right? People pick holes in certain things he said and done. He's had 47 years in government, in the Senate and Congress, whatever. You're going to have things and decisions or, you know, votes that you've made that people will question. But the guy's a decent man. You know, I think I don't buy into this idea, and I know there's certain things you can look at and say he should have done better there, or I didn't agree with that. But, you know, you look at his speech in the 80s about apartheid, when many of his country were like willing to back the South Africans. You look at the way he is interacting with people. You know, the guy suffered the loss of his daughter and his wife. Then he lost his son as well later on, 30 years later, whatever it is. So he's been through loss and he can empathise with people. So I think he's a decent guy. Then you go over to our shower of shite that you call the British government. And I know we've got a few more years of this, at least 4 years or whatever, but the cracks are there and people are seeing it. And this pandemic has just highlighted how inept they are, how corrupt they are over here, and how just fucking, you know, distasteful they are as well. I mean, you've seen Priti Patel doing a post today about ending, free movement, celebrating that like it's some sort of achievement. And it's like, are you for fucking real? But I think people are beginning to see it. And I think that Biden's not very pro-Britain anyway. He's more pro-European. There's flaws there that Boris Johnson's got to rebuild some bridges, especially after his fucking half Kenyan idiotic comment about Barack Obama, which apparently, according to reports, Biden, he doesn't really hold grudges, but Kamala Harris didn't like it and she's not happy about it. And Biden himself, even though he doesn't hold a grudge, remembers it. So there's that. And then, you know, you see that Biden mentioned about the Good Friday Agreement, and now if Britain breaks that, there's going to be problems. So maybe there's a little bit of a shift. And Keir Starmer, excuse me, for all his faults, I'm not a massive fan of Keir Starmer, if I'm being honest. He's gaining in the polls. And maybe, you know, whilst I don't think Keir Starmer's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, I think he's a better option than Boris Johnson and Boris Johnson's government. Maybe, you know, we're getting there. It's going to take a long time, obviously another 4 years, but I don't know, maybe we are coming, you know, what is it Churchill said? It's not the... this is not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end, but it might just be the end of the beginning. So maybe we are moving forward towards something now.
Fingers crossed, man.
Yeah, because you have to have a little bit of hope, don't you, mate? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, because it has been horrible the last few years. Trumpism, the Tories, you know, cuts, austerity. You're going back further. The rise of the right, EDL, UKIP, other shit that's gone on. You know, people just being. Racism seems to be coming back in vogue, for want of a better term. Yeah. And it makes you despair, especially me and you, when during this time we've had kids and started families, and we see all this and you think, you know, what? I still think there's, I still think there's more good people than bad, and I still think by and large, the vast majority of people just want what me and you do. They want to get up in the morning, go to work. Well, they don't want to go to work, but they have to. Want a job where they can go to work, come home, see the kids are all right, and go to bed. I think that's what people want. I don't think most people want to get up in the morning and hate and hate and hate and argue and hate and hate. I don't think they do. I think they just want a quiet life.
Yeah, I mean, going back to David Simon on that, it's the control of the media that sort of spins the narrative. Or I was on a listen to a podcast earlier this week with him, and he was saying that democracy is under attack when you can have people like, obviously now, just like this year where Twitter have been putting mutes on certain news tweets by the likes of Donald Trump or fake news and stuff like that. But there's got to be more control over it. I don't think you can have sort of, when we've got such a partisan press that can put posts out, do you know what I mean, on certain stories that spin narratives. I think that's majorly where I despair, because I understand that, as my granddad used to say, for every dickhead there's a diamond out there, and I do believe that in society that the majority of people are good, but also I do. My biggest fear is that how easy people's minds can be shaped by what they read online, and then sometimes with the power of algorithms on the likes of Facebook and Twitter, you just got to see the rise in David Icke's cult, haven't you? And just see how many people are sort of against fucking coronavirus and vaccines. By the way, has anyone seen Ian Brown today? Do you know what I mean? but yeah, but what do you know what I mean? But it just takes one little thing, and then everything on social media now in the news just seems to be so much like torch paper. Like, you just need to say one tweet, and then as long as if someone gets hold of it with the right size account and retweets it, it doesn't matter if it's fact checked anymore. It's just it's already out there in the ether, and you don't have any control over it. And David Simon was talking about when he was at I think it was the Baltimore Sun before he started writing The Wire, and he said, most of my proudest moments as a journalist wasn't the stories that we put out. It was the stories that we didn't put out because we didn't have enough evidence to say it was a story. And he said, and he goes, and I was more proud about that than the stories that actually won awards. It was that we had the sort of resolve to turn around and say, this isn't correct. We don't have enough sources on this. And you don't have that sort of filter anymore at all. Anybody can, I mean, we could spin some bullshit like on air, you know, about anything, and someone says, oh, I seen this on Scotty and Motty's show. That must be true. And then the sort of gossip machine runs around, and I think that's my fear. Me and my wife talking the other day, and obviously I've got 3 kids, and my eldest is 8, and she was looking towards high school a couple of years, and I wasn't being melodramatic about it, but I was like, what did we like? What you know, when we brought them into this world, like, did we really think it through? Do you know what I mean? Like what did we sort of? Because it's in the shit. I know you were saying we've had it before in terms of Reagan and Thatcher and stuff like that. But I wasn't a parent, and I was happy getting smashed off my face. And, you know, I don't give a fuck what's happening in London or Washington. It's different era and stuff. But it just didn't seem as dark as it does now. And, man, with social media, I think people become more politically aware in these times. But that can have a negative effect as well as a positive.
No, you're right. And, you know, you've hit the nail on the head. It can have a negative effect as well as a positive. And like you just said, and I think it's easy if you just take some of the things that you spoon-fed on face value without double-checking or using your intelligence. And sometimes you can get the wrong information. And, you know, we don't know about algorithms and stuff like that, and the way Facebook especially can filter certain news and you know, the sort of Cambridge Analytica side of things or whatever, to try and influence you. But I think that most people are sort of getting a bit more clued up about it. Not everyone, but I think people are getting there. I think people are questioning it more. And I think people realise that, you know, not everything you see is online is necessarily the truth. And I don't mean like a conspiracy theory level. I think people appreciate that there is sometimes, you know, newspapers or news articles or the people who write them are sort of leaning one way or the other. And I think that, you know, going back to what you said about David Simon, you know, I think this is sort of one thing that journalism and journalists need to do more of is this sort of idea of just almost trying to get there first and not trying to get there in the right way. It seems because of social media now, there's a lot of pressure on journalists to So do two things: get there first, be the first one, the first to break the story, without, like you just said, verifying it, checking it, and whatnot, and also sensationalize things and clickbait them. You know, I mean, me and you are football fans. I lost counting the amount of times I've clicked on an article because it says one thing and the article means another. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like literally lies. Like I seen one yesterday, and it was like he said something like Paul Pogba, you know, comments on Pochettino to United or gives his view on Pochettino to United. My initial thought is, why is he fucking saying things about that? Like that, he shouldn't be saying that. And I clicked on it and I read the article that links to another article, and I read the link in the other article. He doesn't say that. At no point does he say any of that. It's just it's made up. But I clicked on it and I've clicked through it. I've clicked, you know, I've done a click through as well. So you've got your hit, you've got your view, and also if I didn't click on it, if I just read that headline, I'd gone away thinking Paul Pogba's been running his mouth up about Maurizio Pochettino undermining Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What's a bell end? Do you know what I mean? When that isn't true. I know I'm using a relatively frivolous example because there's much more important things going on in the world than whether Paul Pogba said something about a football manager. But you get what I'm saying? Like, that's just an example of a lie spouted. It gets the clicks. People that don't click on it and check might just read the headline and make an assumption or an opinion on it. And that's not good enough, you know? And it's like, we see it with like major newspapers as well. The Sun and the Daily Mail are terrible for it. You know, do you remember when the Sun did that story and it was like 1 in 4 or 3 out of 5 British Muslims wants jihadi or some shite? And you're like, that's on the front page. And you're like, not that I read the Sun, but I can see it in a newsstand when I walk past it. I'm not blind. And you go, what? And I don't even need to read that drivel. I know that's made up. I know it's bollocks. But people will. And then it turns out that the sort of the survey they did, it was worded in a way that was misleading, and it was like, you know, sort of tailored to make it look a certain way. And then they end up apologising, issuing a retraction on like page 27 3 weeks later at the bottom underneath your horoscopes. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, people have already read that on the front page and formed opinions.
Yeah, the damage is already done.
Yeah, and Paul, like you know, I always think this, and this is, you know, shows where we're at. I hope I'm not offending anyone saying this, but I do actually feel sorry for a lot of the, you know, Muslim community, because I think, imagine seeing newspapers day after day just hammering you. Like front pages of the newspaper, British Muslims want jihad, British Muslims is Muslim, you know what I mean? Muslim family flees to Iraq or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, just constant. If that was like, I mean, I know we've had it in the past, but if it was every day I picked up a newspaper or saw on the front page or in a headline, you know, ball black boy or ball black man or Mancunians fucking want war or Mancunian, you'd be like, mate, no one wants me here. Do you know what I mean? And it's terrible. And I think now I'm hoping again, it goes back to my thing about hope, that people wising up to it, people are just almost bypassing a lot of it. You know what I mean? It's like, people are intelligent, right? We dismiss them and say everyone's thick and they're all lemons. We're not. We live in an intelligent society, and it's a myth that we're not. Even some of the conspiracy theories are actually relatively intelligent. They're just misguided. Do you know what I mean? They're not thick. Do you know what I mean? It's just.
But that's the worry, though, Jay. Is that I know, and if anything, when we're looking at the conspiracy theorists, these people I know that are well-read and educated people, and, you know, that I'd have a conversation down the pub, and some of the shit that I see them spouting about the whole coronavirus and stuff, it's just absurd. And it's like, how can you believe that? And then I can, you know, it gives me more clarity as to why people join Charles Manson's cult. Do you know what I mean? It does, because you just see it, how easy people's mind. If again, we spoke about loads of times, like where Donald Trump was sort of like the pseudo populism, like saying, oh, evil murderous Mexicans are the reasons you haven't got jobs, we'll ban them. And the same with the coronavirus. If you're sowing them this, if you're selling them the dream, the answers that they want to hear, then they'll follow you like the fucking Pied Piper. But there needs to be more accountability. And this is like that fucker at Facebook, that Zucker fucker. You know, he needs, Zuckerberg. Yeah. Right, didn't he? But he, like, whenever Twitter is sort of banning posts or putting the things on, they're about 12 hours behind. So the damage is already fucking done in terms of how they're controlled it. And I wouldn't be let's get your point of view on this. I wouldn't be surprised because it's been touted before that Mark Zuckerberg might have interests in going to the White House. Now, if you're sat on what is it, probably the biggest social media network in the world, and you're in control of that much algorithms, how hard of a job would it be for him to do that? Do you know what I mean? Because there's no policing, is there, of the social media, especially when you own the fucking thing, and it has been used in the past by Cambridge Analytica to sort of win votes and stuff like that. And then you look at and just use that as an idea, but then look at Trump as the theory in practice that you can get popular voters, that you can get popular people off the TV into the White House. Not to go back down a negative street, but what aspiration does that give to people outside of your usual politicians? You know what I mean? Maybe Trump sort of shown, I don't know, we talk about that comedian who's not a comedian, Lawrence Fox, who's starting his own political party. Do you know what I mean? So other people start getting this belief that, oh, fuck it, Trump did it for 4 years. Mark Zuckerberg's like, you know what, I'm sat on 2 billion people's accounts. I can just go like, hey, Mark Zuckerberg's the best thing since fucking Warburton's. Do you know what I mean?
But then again, yeah, I'm with you, and I get it. And Zuckerberg, I don't know if you saw when he was in front of Congress and AOC, just tore him apart. She really did. About the fact that white supremacists, and I think I can't remember the name of the site. It's not the Daily Caller, is it? I can't remember what it's called. But it was given like a verification and certain articles that were by far right groups were allowed on there, and they weren't properly checked and restricted. And she tore him apart, and a lot of people have questioned Zuckerberg and his ties to Trump. He's obviously been at the White House, I think, with Trump. But again, it goes back to my thing where I think there's a lot of people out there that are just decent and won't stand for it. And I think when Facebook did their conference, there was a lot of people. I think 2 people walked out from Facebook who were unhappy with it. Who were like, these are the top brass in Facebook. Obviously, you don't get to sit down and have a chat with Mark Zuckerberg when you're the cleaner. But they were like, this isn't right. The way we're sort of tailored and what we're doing and things, the articles and the posts and what we're allowing is just, we're allowing racism to have a voice and flourish at times. And we need to get a check on that. Now, things are different because under Biden, I think they're going to be different when they were under Trump, but they're not going to be perfect. And obviously you've got a Senate that's still, at the time of recording, is Republican, and Congress, I know that the majority has been shrunk, but it's just about Democrat. The Supreme Court is Republican. I'm not saying all Republicans are bad or anything, but there's still a right sort of conservative tilt there. And I think that, things like that need to be looked at, and whether Biden can change what's going on at Facebook and regulate or whatever, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I know Trump was threatening to do it when he wasn't happy. But when going back to the original point of Zuckerberg, he does have a lot of power. He does have a lot of control. And okay, granted, he's built up that company and he started it, and we've all seen the social network and no one went on there, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, you have to have some accountability, and you have to be not just allowing hate speech or far right nonsense to infiltrate what should be a safe space for us all to go on.
Yeah, definitely. No, fingers crossed that it just gets some sort of accountability for the posts and stuff that they're allowed to do it. So what's the world going to look like under Biden then, Jay? What do you foresee?
I think that normality. I kept calling it the other night. Normalcy will be hopefully the order of the day. I think we'll see a little bit more sort of from him himself, more presidential-like behaviour. I don't think we're going to have the 3 a.m. morning rants on Twitter and the calling out people and threatening people and declaring war or threatening to declare a war on North Korea via tweets. So hopefully we'll see a little bit of that. We have to be realistic. Biden can't change everything. As I mentioned, the Senate looks like it's still going to be have a slight Republican advantage. I think there's a runoff in Georgia which may change that, but it's doubtful. So we'll have to see what happens there. I think one thing Biden can do is he can work with the Republicans. He's been in the Senate for 47 years, whatever it is, or he's been in government for 47 years. So he's used to working with people from the other party. He has a sort of personality where people tend to warm to him, and he has that sort of nature of being able to, bring people together and work with them and compromise when you need to compromise. And there's been an argument put forward that maybe the fact that he doesn't control the Senate may even help him slightly, because a lot of the progressives in the Democrat Party, which, I would like to see more of, I'd like to see more of them. I'd like to see more of them winning Senate seats. And I think progressivism is a good thing. And, I'd like to see more of it in this country and in America. They'll want certain things from him, whereas his sort of the fact he doesn't control the Senate is almost his get out of jail free card, because he's like, well, I can't physically make that happen. So it doesn't alienate the progressives in his party. And hopefully they can sort of still support him, because I know a lot of them feel that they helped deliver the election because they did. There's this myth going around that, it was the progressives that cost him the Senate, and it was, he would have had a landslide. That's nonsense. You've got to give people credit where it's due, and it was the black vote, and I hate using that term, so I'll just say black voters counted a lot. Those late votes you saw coming in, places like Atlanta, places like Philadelphia, places like Detroit, that carried those states were areas where the most people living there were predominantly African American. That is what got him over the line. And, he said it in his speech. He mentioned African American people as helping him get over the line. He said, "You had my back, I'll have yours." So that's a positive message. Can you imagine Donald Trump ever saying that?
No, that's a good point.
Can even thinking it, let alone saying. He might have paid lip service to black people in the past, but he's never ever come out with something like that. He certainly never said it and meant it. So that Biden, of course, has got a mixed race vice president, a female vice president. So he's already spoken about the importance of that. She's spoken about the importance of that. And let's not pretend as well here. Biden is an old man. He's 77. I think he might be 78 by the time of his inauguration. Massive question marks over whether he'll see out his full term. And I don't mean he's necessarily going to die within that time, but if his health at any point deteriorates during that 4 years, because there's a world of difference between being 78 and being 82, then Kamala Harris will become president, even if it's just acting president or whatever, whilst, he might have recovering from something or whatever. But that's obviously going to be massive, because she's viewed as very much a liberal figure in that party. And she's going to have to sort of find a way to work with the Republicans as well. So there's going to be a little turmoil. There's going to be a little bit of, toing and froing, and there may be some problems with the fact that you look straight away the COVID relief bill and things like that. Is he going to be able to get that passed? We'll have to wait and see. But I think the overriding sort of feeling, for me anyway, and I'm not an expert in this by any stretch of the imagination, is that we might just get a little bit of decency back in American politics, because you've always had mudslinging, you've always had shenanigans, as Donald Trump said. You've always had sort of dirty dealings and people having special interests and whatnot, but you've never had just this hatefulness and this utter just cruelty from the president. And I think that it's almost had a big influence, that from the top down. It's influenced people at a lower level, where people, if you are racist, whatever, feel emboldened. If you are like, a sort of angry, disenfranchised man, he's encouraged that. He's encouraged you to feel angry at, immigrants, or angry at Muslims, or angry at black people, where now from the top, you're not going to get that. So it's not going to solve all the problems, but I think that bit of decency may go a long way to just healing a little bit of the country, because America, I thought we had it bad over here. Over there, we knelt on the back of what we saw over there, because over there is just, it's new level. We've got our own issues. We've got problems. We've seen deaths in police custody. I'm not saying that, but, public lynchings by policemen. Fucking hell. You know what I mean? Come on. And then, a kid goes out, a 17-year-old goes out with his assault rifle, shoots 2 people, and members of the government put up a defence fund for him. What the fuck is going on? Do you know what I mean? It's like, you need to just roll it back and try and get to a bit of normality.
And at least 70 million people still voted for him.
Well, this is the thing. You know what, though, mate? Right? You're right. They did, and it's no point in pretending that it's like a landslide for Biden in the sense that I know he got more votes than anyone else in history, but the guy he beat got the second most votes in anyone in history.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to do. But again, I go back to this thing. Yes, you're going to have factions who just are obsessed with Trump and we're almost ready to take to the streets. But you're going to have a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump, but still want a quiet life.
Yeah.
They're not everyone who voted for Donald Trump wants to go out in the garden, can pull out their AK and start shooting black people. They just don't. There's a lot of people out there who voted for Donald Trump because they thought it was better for the economy, voted for him because they thought he made America great again or whatever. But by and large, they just want a quiet life. And if Biden can give him that, they'll be happy. And I think he can.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just, because a lot of that was compounded hatred or misplaced racism. Is that a term? But surely there needs to be sort of like some realization to what was the underlying thing behind that, because there are a lot of Dave Chappelle touched on it on his Saturday Night Live this weekend about like being broken white and stuff like that, wasn't it? And there are a massive amount of them, and I think in America the difference between America and here is that if you're broke in England, it's not as obvious in a sort of, I might be wrong here, but in a colour divide, you have broke areas, but there's a lot more. We have like it's a multiculturally on our ass. Do you know what I mean? It's not like it's not like trailer parks of it, is it? Or it's not like ghettos and stuff like that, is it? It's like it's a lot more diverse. Diverse on the dole. There's a fucking. On the dole,
there you go. There's your next track.
There's an album title for me. But we shall see how Biden and Kamala Harris get on. The thing is, it won't be as entertaining, and that will be a very good thing.
How do you feel about it? Do you feel like, I mean, I don't know if your daughters are old enough to realise what's going on, but there's a mixed race woman in the White House elect. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I mean, I tweeted you earlier on because I was a bit confused whether I was allowed to be.
Sorry, I didn't.
Not tweeted you. I WhatsApped you. Some form of communication.
We had to be doing things on YouTube.
Yeah.
It's like listening to two granddads going, "I'd send you. I'd carry a pigeon, Joe."
Did you get that letter?
Sorry, I was up on the roof doing smoke signals. I didn't see it. WhatsApp you earlier on about regarding the whole Kamala Harris thing, which is fantastic, and a lot of the people, the headlines were first woman of color has got the vice presidency in history, which is great. But I mean, first and foremost, it's just that she got there on her merits and not because of her color or her gender. I think sometimes when we focus on that, then you detract from the ability. And I think it can be seen as a little bit of a slight when we use that as the thing that we should be talking about, rather than the reasons she actually got to the power she was in. But one of the frustrations and this is what I needed to check with you, and I'll ask the people out there in YouTube land. Kamala Harris is half Indian, half black. Now, a lot of the newspapers and press were sort of saying first black vice presidency, or the Guardian said first woman of colour presidency. Here's 3 writers that we've got that will explain what it means to them. And they had 3 black writers. And I was thinking, okay, Kamala Harris's dad was black, but Kamala Harris's mum is Indian. Kamala Harris's mum raised her, actually, because her dad left her at a very young age. So I know she grew up in black communities, and I'm not too sure. And you'll be better placed than me on that, where you sort of stand being mixed race in terms of what box you tick. You tick both of them. I'd do half. We had sort of shade. But I'm a bit Kamal. I'm like a quarter Asian and half West Indian. But obviously I'm fucking from Eccles, so.
But that was the thing. Is that why have they gone down the route of it being the black seemed to be more the dominant story than her being half Indian, and it just seemed a little bit. I don't know, my wife's Indian, so my kids are half Indian. My dad's half Indian. Do you know what I mean? And it's all a bit, I was like, so I wasn't fighting on behalf of the people. I wasn't trying to say, well, we need as much as the blacks to, do you know what I mean? That wasn't my narrative.
Let's try and pit them against each other.
There's a race war we've not had.
Yeah, Come on. Whose side are you on, Kamala? You better pick a side. Don't give me any of this woman of colour shit. You one or the other.
But again, what you were saying before, like the black vote or black voters, but when you use it as such a homogenous term, that's to say that there is one black person and they all fall under the same umbrella. And then when you say the same thing of even further so, which is even more derogatory, when you say woman of colour to suggest...
I get where you're coming from there. And I saw AOC on CNN and they said, you're a woman of colour and you've got a woman of colour now in the White House or, elected, it will be in the White House. How does that feel? And I was like, and I think we have to understand it a little bit with the nuances and stuff in America. Like, I would never look at, AOC and think she's mixed race or whatever. To me, she looks like a white woman. But in America, you're Hispanic, they class it as a woman of color, which I get, and that's not, not dismissing that. I think it's almost I think they're trying to use it as a term of celebration of, you're a person of color, this is for all people of color almost, that they can be proud of this. That's maybe me being a little bit naive. I think that's one way of looking at it. I think going back to your point of why has it been the focus about the fact of black heritage and not our Indian heritage, which I think is a fair point because I've seen more comments about that. And I think that, she has mentioned it, obviously, and, she's proud of it and she spoke about it, I think, on her acceptance speech. And it's not like it's a secret, but it seems to be more about the fact you've got, a black woman or about a black ancestry, a black father, sorry. But I think maybe a lot of that, not all of it, some of it stems from the fact that has been the narrative for the past 6 months, especially with Black Lives Matter, with the George Floyd death, with everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
So it feels particularly relevant now. Because I know that Black Lives Matter wasn't just about black people. I know George Floyd's death wasn't just about black people. I know that. I get that. The reaction and the way people felt, it was sort of colourblind almost, although obviously it affected, it was more resonant towards black people, but it wasn't just the exclusivity of black people feeling that or feeling, wanting to do something about it or bring about change, but it was obviously predominantly black. And I think that might have been one of the reasons why you're getting a lot of that now. I think that the black voters are mentioned as well because that played such a big part in the election result. Maybe they're pandering to that a little bit and saying, oh, look, black voters did this. And, Stacey Abrams, who obviously played a massive part in Georgia in getting the vote out there and getting, turning that blue. So it's like, Kamala Harris is part black. And I think it always plays a bit of a bigger part in American culture, American sort of history almost.
Yeah, when you look at the narrative of American history, I understand that. I
think it does. But you're right. I mean, I'd hate for it to be almost dismissed or ignored slightly. It shouldn't be. It's a big part of who she is. She's proud of it. And I think we should be too. And I think, maybe some papers or some news agencies, they might be doing this already, I don't know. But maybe they should be reaching out to more Indian commentators to talk about that because it's a good part. And can I just say, how fucking ace is it we're having this conversation?
Yeah.
Got a vice president. It's like, do you know what I'm upset about this vice president? The fact that, how mint is that, mate? I'm sorry, but that is fucking brilliant. That you can say, like, my daughter's part Indian, and we've got someone like us part Indian in the White House. I want people to talk about it more. That is fucking brilliant because we've just had the polar opposite of that.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
My daughters are Indian. I don't think they'll be allowed to visit America because we've got Donald Trump in the White House. That's been the right. So it is it's like it's almost like a lovely problem to have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's such a welcome change from the awfulness we've had over the last 4 years. So yeah, I'm buzzing for it. You're right, mate. But I'm sure this is going to come out. And if I was even remotely prominent Indian writer or commentator over in America, I'd be banging down the doors of any news agency that'd have me and just saying, you know what, I've got something to say about this.
Mike, you've just put me in a good mood now. I was on a negative, talk about all negative hope, and you've span it around, mate. Well, that's it. All colours matter.
Are you moving to Burnley? You?
She needs to get a half and half shirt. I tell you what, who do you reckon she supports in the cricket? Jamaica or India? Oh, but that's feisty in the Kamala Harris home.
Yeah, is it the West Indies or India? Mate, do you know what? I'm not like the one sport I'm not into is cricket. So
me neither. So let's move on.
I couldn't even tell you. I couldn't even tell you she's better off supporting because I don't even know who's the better team out of them two. So forgive us cricket fans if you're screaming at your screen.
Yeah, back to home. We have a vaccine, apparently. Pfizer have come out and said they're 90% sure, which seems like pretty good odds. I'm not too sure if I'd take the injection at 90%. But apparently today it's come out that there is a vaccine coming. Boris has held a press conference at 5:00, and he reckons that we've ordered, I think, enough for the third of the population. And he said that by the end of December, we may be able to start rolling it out to the general public, and it'll start coming down through the ages. So as you'd expect, the most vulnerable will get it first, so the 90-year-old, 80-year-old, and so on and so forth. A lot of the conspiracy theorists are out again. It's been a good year for conspiracy theorists. We're saying that that Pfizer waited until after the election to sort of release the information that they'd actually found a vaccine, because it may have swayed Donald Trump's votes. Because I'll have to get your opinion on that. But if you've got a vaccine, it will probably be the best way to end the year, knowing that we can go into 2020 with some sort of normalcy, as you like to say. That's the word. Is it normalcy? That's the right way.
I think so. Yeah. I don't know why I've struggled with that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, good news. Obviously, I'm a little bit wary in terms of how realistic, how sort of likely it is that this is going to work as well as everyone hopes. But it does seem like a real positive story, or positive bit of news on what has been an absolute horror show for everyone since whatever it was, March onwards. So a vaccine, if it works, is fantastic, because we can get back to the way things are, because we've always thought without a vaccine it's impossible for, and I'm going to be a bit selfish here, it's impossible for us all, for example, to go to pack out the cinema or to go to the football. You can't really do that without a vaccine. You still have to socially distance, you still have to do all these things which limit the amount of crowds, and it's obviously it makes life difficult for a lot of people in a lot of places. So it sounds good. It sounds like this could be the one, and I hope so. I hope it is. And I hope we do have a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. And as for the thing that if they held it back till after the election, then fucking I'll give them 2 pats on the back. That's even better.
First time you've been a fan of Big Pharma.
Yeah, first and last time.
Pfizer!
Yeah, go Pfizer. And this is coming from a Johnson & Johnson fan. So, I mean, we'll wait and see, mate. Always, I'm a bit cynical, but it does sound like this could be what we've been waiting for. Fucking hell, it's been a long way on it, mate.
Yeah, man, and obviously the since we did our proper podcast, we've gone back into lockdown, and the government's backtracked. Again, they've reversed, and now they're doing the furlough scheme till end of March, which they weren't doing up until we had to go back into lockdown. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, just same old fucking contradictory shambles in it. You look at the money. We only had 67% for Manchester. Didn't have the 80% that everyone wanted, and then a week later, we've got the 80% for the entire country, because we're all going into furlough again. So, yes, it's a positive thing that there's some sort of money there, but it's your money, don't forget that. And they have wasted billions on giving fat contracts to their mates who are fucking completely incompetent. And while we're on the subject of backtracking and U-turns, can we just take a moment to say how fucking brilliant Marcus Rashford is yet again?
It's not that one out, didn't they, that story?
Yeah, it's not that one out late at night. He's done it again, ain't that boy Marcus? He took a lot of flack from idiotic Tory MPs trying to put him down on Twitter. And at the end of the day, he's got a U-turn. He's not the full U-turn that he wants. And I'm 100% confident that he will get everything he wants, everything he wanted in terms of free school meals and the support that families need going through Christmas. And I just think that's fantastic. And I think that, again, it goes back to the thing, of what I said earlier. Yes, at the top especially, there have been some pretty grim people in charge and some pretty horrible things we've had to deal with. But there's a lot of decent people out there. And if anything highlighted that, it was Marcus Rashford's campaign, when you had businesses, individuals, charities, councils, people that didn't have a pot to piss in but had a little bit more than the neighbours mucking in to try and help out. And that's what people are. We give societies a shit and it's all got the dogs and everyone's a twat. They're not, and it's showing this. You've had millions of people at a time when we're all skint coming forward and saying, what can I do? I'm about this, I'm into this. I might be hungry, but they're starving, so how can I help them? And I like that. And I think that just highlights, Marcus Rashford, that, there's individuals out there that are just fucking amazing, and he's been amazing on and off the pitch. I say that as a United fan, I've never been more proud of any player. I mean that. And secondly, that people will, show their decency and get behind the common good cause. We're not all selfish, horrible, racist bastards.
Yeah, no, I mean, on that note, you beautiful people out there that have been watching the show and subscribing, and obviously the live that we did last week, thoroughly enjoyed for the 3 hours I kept awake. It's been a pleasure sharing a very positive Jay tonight. I think you're up there on, I don't know what sugar you've been eating this evening, but you're in a Biden, Sleepy Joe has got a happy Jay.
As a part Asian, part black person, right? I've been waiting for 40 years to be fully represented. And as someone who, has several women in my life, in terms of my daughters, my mum and my missus, it's all I've ever wanted. Yeah. That's all I've ever wanted to see in the White House, and we've got it now. Do you know what I mean? All we need to do now is get rid of that blithering idiot in the Downing Street and replace him with someone who knows what they're doing, and we'll be laughing.
I've been Scotter, and that's been Moy.